There's a reason trucking companies will show you a top earner. There's a reason they'll show you one good week. And there's a reason they avoid showing real averages at all. It's not an accident, and it's not about privacy. Today I'm going to explain why companies avoid real averages, why this is so important, and why getting numbers in writing protects you no matter how you're paid. This applies to everyone. W-2 drivers, 1099 drivers, lease drivers, owner-operators. Badge structure doesn't care how you are classified. It just shows up differently. And one of the fastest ways to spot a badge structure is to look at the averages they don't want to show you. And real quick, stay with me to the end of this video, because at the end I'm going to break down 4 legal terms every driver should understand if a company pulls a bait and switch on your pay. Most drivers don't know these words. Most drivers don't know how they even apply. This is about 10 minutes of your life, but it can save you months or years of getting burned. And if it ever comes down to it, this is the kind of information that can actually help you in court, because documentation and averages turn your word versus theirs into evidence. Companies love showing top earners because top earners are outliers. Outliers don't represent reality. They represent expectations. One driver running perfect lanes and perfect weeks and perfect timing, that's marketing. That's not structure. Top earners make bad systems look really, really good, and averages really expose the truth. I want to talk to you about something that happened the other night. Let me give you a real example from our own YouTube comments. We had a guy that jumped in, someone that jumped into our thread. I could tell that he was educated. At first, he sounded calm. He was reasonable. He kept saying that it would be difficult for recruiters to give averages, that it could put companies at risk, that it involved personal driver information. I thought it was a bit odd, so I let him keep continuing to talk. And we pointed out something really simple to him. I said, trucking companies already handle Social Security numbers. They handle CDLs, DAC reports, PSPs, driver's banking information, credit information. They can even do abandonments on drivers. They deal with far more sensitive data every single day. Redacting a name from a settlement is really, really easy, and it's not hard. But he kept going on and on. Every excuse that you can imagine, he started coming up with. He started going in circles. At one point, no joke, he started talking about Russians. And then the whole office was it was like a tidal wave hit. It came out. He wasn't just a commenter. He had started his career with CRST, and now he was a trucking owner. And suddenly it made all the sense in the world. This wasn't about privacy. It wasn't about fear. He was fear of averages, fear of patterns, and fear of the documentation. Because when someone fights transparency that hard, it's usually because their averages don't survive under their own system. And he didn't want that information getting out. And that right there told me, hey, we're winning. We're teaching drivers the right things. This is why averages matter more than stories. Stories are flexible. They change depending on who's telling them. Averages don't. An 8-week average doesn't care about weather, it doesn't care about excuses, and it doesn't care about sales pitches. It shows how the system performs over time. Good structures hold up across weeks. Bad ones only look good in snapshots. Patterns expose all of these. The patterns expose the structures. And here's something most drivers don't even realize. A lot of trucking companies aren't built around operations. They're built around sales. Recruiting is sales. Retention is sales. And sales live on optimism. Averages kills the optimism, because averages don't care how good the pitch sounds. They don't care how confident the recruiter is, and they don't care how hard you plan to run. They just show what actually happens. That's why you hear phrases like, every driver's different. You control your paycheck. It depends on how hard you run. Those phrases exist to avoid one thing, and that is patterns. This is where drivers get blamed for systems they didn't design. If the structure is bad, there's no amount of hard work that can fix it. You can run harder inside a broken structure and you can still lose. That's why two drivers can run the same miles, the same weeks, put out the same effort, and end up with completely different outcomes. That's not performance. What that is structure. And you see, averages separate the two. This is something that drivers really need to understand. It's not just about seeing the numbers, it's about getting them in writing. Whether it's through email, a text, screenshots, documents, because once a company uses numbers to get you to sign on or to come on board with them, that's no longer just recruiter talk, okay? This is real documentation. And documentation changes everything for you. At the beginning of the video, I told you we're going to go over 4 big legal words that's going to help you if things ever go south for you while you're working at a company, okay? And this is where these big words come in, and I'm going to keep it really simple because the first one is misrepresentation. Write this down if you have paper, okay? This is when a company shows numbers that aren't accurate or representative, and you rely on them to make a decision. Okay. The second word is going to be what we call fraudulent inducement. That's when pay examples or averages are used specifically to get you to sign, but the reality didn't match what was presented to you. Third is negligent misrepresentation. This is when a company didn't bother verifying the numbers that they showed you, even though they should have known better. Okay. And fourth is one of my favorites. It's what we call promissory estoppel. This is when a company makes a promise about pay or structure, you rely on it, and then you're financially harmed because of what they've done, even if that promise isn't written into the contract. Now, I'm not telling you this so you can go out and sue everybody, but what I am telling you is that you have more power as a truck driver than you realize. And this is why documentation gives you leverage, and this is why you need this information. Confusion protects bad systems. If you don't know what's normal, you don't know when you're being underpaid. If you don't know the average, you assume the problem is you. And when drivers internalize failure, they don't push back. They don't lawyer up. That's not accidental. That's how confusion becomes a business strategy for a lot of these companies that are out here. And this is why we keep talking about structure to you. Not to scare drivers and not to turn trucking negative, but because drivers are taught how to drive, how to run logs, and how to haul freight. But what they're not taught is how companies make money off of them. And that's what we're going to teach you. Once you understand structure, you stop blaming yourself for systematic problems. And that changes everything. And you're not going to hear many people, if ever, talk about anything like we do here at Big Rig Nation. Because if a company is not going to show you real averages or won't put real numbers in writing, they're not protecting privacy. They're protecting a business model. And bad pay isn't random. Bad pay isn't bad luck. And bad pay is a very big problem hiding in the structure. Structure always reveals itself, either before you sign or when you still have leverage, or after it's too late when the cost is already yours. That's why averages matter. That's why writing matters. And that's why this video matters.